Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will sting. Women don't confess, they conceal, and the tricks they use are far more subtle than you think. The truth doesn't show up in lipstick marks or perfume. It hides in disappearing messages, sudden late meetings, and friends you've never actually met. Before I reveal these 10 secret methods women use to cover betrayal, I need you to do something. Subscribe right now, hit that like button, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. You'll be shocked how many men worldwide face the same silent war. Method 1. The overcompensation switch. Listen carefully. The first method women use to hide betrayal is the one most men actually fall for. The sudden flood of affection. She doesn't pull away, she doesn't turn cold. Instead, she flips a switch overnight and becomes the perfect wife. Breakfast in bed, surprise gifts, sweet texts every hour. It feels like love reborn. But it's not love, it's guilt mathematics. Here's what I mean. Real affection grows slowly, naturally, in rhythm with your connection. But when guilt eats her alive, she panics. She thinks if she drowns you in attention, you won't suspect the storm she's hiding. Suddenly, she's baking cookies at 11 p.m., buying you that expensive watch just because, or calling you handsome 5 times a day when last week she barely looked up from her phone. It feels intoxicating, almost too good to be true. Because it is. Want the dirty gossip detail? Picture this. She's been cold for months, scrolling through her phone during dinner, shrugging off your touch. Then, out of nowhere, she's blowing up your work chat with heart emojis and offering to drive across town just to bring you your favorite coffee. That's not love. That's her conscience doing damage control. The danger is obvious. Most men mistake this for healing. You tell yourself, she's finally back, things are getting better. But deep down, something feels rehearsed, a little too polished, like she's playing a role. And roles can't last forever. Remember this, genuine closeness builds gradually. Sudden, frantic affection, that's a mask, and masks eventually crack. But guilt isn't the only disguise she wears. Because when love bombing fails, she turns to her next weapon. One designed to make you look like the problem. And that weapon is far more dangerous. Method 2. The defensive deflection. Now pay attention, because this one is pure psychological warfare. When a woman feels her secret is in danger, she doesn't explain, she attacks. This is the method I call defensive deflection. You ask an innocent question, and suddenly you become the villain. Picture it, you casually say, "Who were you messaging so late last night?" A harmless question any loyal partner could answer in seconds. But instead of clarity, she snaps back, "Why are you always spying on me? Don't you trust me? You're suffocating me with your paranoia." Notice what just happened. The spotlight shifted. You're no longer the man asking a reasonable question. You're the insecure, controlling detective. And here's the gossip-style detail most men miss. One husband told me his wife blew up at him simply because he asked why she left her gym bag by the door. Her response: "Why are you always watching what I do? Do you want to control every part of my life?" Listen carefully. That wasn't about the gym bag. That was about guilt exploding under pressure. Psychologically, this trick works on 2 levels. First, it makes you doubt yourself. You start thinking, maybe I am being paranoid. Second, it trains you. Every time you ask a question, she punishes you with anger or tears until you stop asking. It's not just deflection, it's conditioning. But here's the truth you need to hear. Innocent women don't turn basic questions into battles. They answer, then move on. Guilty women weaponize emotion to keep you off balance. And if you think defensive deflection is brutal, wait until you see the next method. Because sometimes, she won't just attack you, she'll accuse you of doing the very thing she's hiding. Method 3. The projection game. Listen carefully. When guilt gets too heavy, some women flip the script entirely. Instead of defending themselves, they go on the offense by accusing you of what they're doing. This is the projection game, and it's one of the cruelest weapons in her arsenal. Here's how it works. You've been nothing but loyal, but suddenly she's side-eyeing your late nights at the office. She asks why the waitress smiled at you, why you were so friendly to your coworker at the company party. Out of nowhere, you're being interrogated like a suspect, and you haven't done a thing wrong. Let me give you a gossip-style detail. One man told me his wife would hurl accusations every time he came home from work. "Who are you with? Don't lie. I can tell something's going on." She grilled him about every female colleague, every casual text, even the way he said hello to the receptionist. Here's the twist. She was having private training sessions with her gym instructor. Her guilt was so suffocating that she convinced herself her husband must be guilty too. Projection isn't random. Psychologically, it's her way of easing the shame. If she can paint you as unfaithful, then suddenly she's not the only one breaking vows. It levels the playing field in her mind, but for you, it's devastating. You start questioning yourself, replaying harmless moments, wondering if you've accidentally done something wrong. That confusion is exactly what she wants. Here's the brutal truth. When a woman who's always trusted you suddenly becomes obsessed with proving your disloyalty, it's often because her own is eating her alive. But projection isn't her only disguise. Because when direct attacks fail, she shifts tactics again. This time with excuses so ordinary, you might not notice the trap. Method 4. The work excuse. Pattern. When betrayal needs a cover, nothing works better than the office. Suddenly, work becomes her shield. Meetings run late, projects pile up, her boss is demanding more than ever. And you accept it, because who questions a job without sounding paranoid? Here's the gossip detail. One man believed his wife was buried in deadlines. She'd drag home at 10 p.m., sigh about client calls, and collapse on the couch. But one night he noticed her so-called emails were sent hours earlier, right when she claimed to still be at the office. The gap told the real story. Psychologically, the work excuse is brilliant because it's unquestionable. If you press, you look controlling. So she adds flavor. A team dinner, traffic delays, emergency presentations. The more details, the safer she feels. But airtight stories usually mean something's leaking underneath. The cracks appear when she forgets her own script. Suddenly, she mixes up which project was urgent or names a coworker who wasn't even in town. That's when you know the story's rehearsed. So remember, sometimes those late nights aren't about chasing promotions. They're about hiding from the truth. And the next mask? It's always closer than you think. Method 5. The vanishing phone. You've probably noticed this one before, but brushed it off. Her relationship with her phone suddenly changes. What used to lie casually on the counter now travels with her everywhere. The bathroom, the shower, even a 2-minute trip to the laundry room. She keeps it face down during dinner, angles the screen away, or locks it with a code she never shared before. That device has become more than a gadget. It's the vault holding her double life. Here's the gossip-style detail. A man once told me his wife renamed a contact in her phone to Sarah from HR. Every time Sarah called, she stepped outside to take it. Here's the kicker. Sarah didn't work weekends. The truth? Sarah was actually a man she met at the gym. The phone wasn't just a tool, it was a camouflage. Psychologically, this is called defensive object attachment. She guards her phone because it contains proof, and every buzz, ping, or vibration sends a jolt of panic through her body. Watch her hands. Does she snatch it up the second it rings? Does she delete messages instantly after reading them? That's not privacy, that's evidence management. What most men miss is how the smallest shifts reveal the biggest secrets. She used to leave her phone charging across the room. Now it's always within arm's reach. She used to scroll openly beside you. Now she tilts the screen, typing like a spy. These aren't random habits, they're survival instincts. And here's the brutal truth. Once the phone becomes untouchable, you're no longer competing with a person. You're competing with a secret world in her pocket. But if you think hidden messages are dangerous, just wait. Because the next method doesn't hide evidence. It tests your forgiveness before she ever admits a thing. Method 6. The guilt confession game. Here's where it gets truly unsettling. Instead of staying silent, she begins to test you, probing, fishing, dangling hypothetical questions like bait. This is what I call the guilt confession game. She won't come out and admit what she's done, but she'll circle the subject, gauging your reaction to betrayal without ever saying the words. It sounds like this. Do you think people can change after making a huge mistake? Or, would you ever forgive someone who did something terrible but regretted it instantly? On the surface, it's harmless conversation, but these aren't random questions. They're reconnaissance missions. She's studying every twitch in your face, every pause in your voice, every word you choose, mapping out whether a confession would destroy her world or give her a shot at mercy. Here's the gossip-style detail. One man told me his wife, out of nowhere, asked what he thought about affairs that meant nothing. When he brushed it off, saying mistakes happen, she relaxed instantly. What he didn't know, she had been meeting a friend from her old job for months. That question wasn't theory. It was rehearsal. Psychologically, guilt demands release. Part of her wants to confess because the secret is too heavy. But fear keeps her silent, so she compromises, feeding you fragments of her conscience disguised as hypotheticals. The tragedy? If you miss the pattern, she takes your casual answers as a green light to keep hiding. Remember this, when questions about betrayal appear out of nowhere, she's not being philosophical. She's testing your boundaries, and boundaries tested too often eventually break. But if you think her words are dangerous, wait until you see how guilt reshapes her presence itself. Because sometimes she's right beside you, yet feels a million miles away. Method 7. The emotional distance paradox. Sometimes the clearest warning isn't what she does, it's what she withholds. This is the emotional distance paradox. She's right there beside you, yet feels a million miles away. Conversations that once flowed easily now sound hollow. She nods, gives short answers, even laughs, but it feels like performance, not connection. Here's the gossip detail. One man told me his wife congratulated him on a big promotion while scrolling Instagram the whole time. Later, he found out she was messaging her coworker during that dinner. She wasn't distracted. She was split between two worlds. Psychologically, guilt builds an invisible wall. Shame can't survive real intimacy, so she avoids eye contact, dodges meaningful topics, and changes the subject when you bring up the future. Affection turns mechanical. A quick hug, a forced kiss, intimacy that feels more like duty than desire. You're left feeling like you're living with a stranger who just happens to wear your wife's face. The cruel twist, you start doubting yourself, wondering if it's stress, routine, or your imagination. But genuine closeness doesn't vanish overnight. It's replaced by a hollow performance designed to keep you from noticing the silence between the words. And when emotional distance sets in, it often means she's rehearsing for physical distance. Which leads us to the next disguise. Method 8. The lifestyle reboot. When guilt starts to rot from the inside, many women don't shrink, they reinvent. This is the lifestyle reboot. The sudden, dramatic transformation that looks like self-improvement, but is really an attempt to outrun shame. Overnight, she's a new person. She joins a yoga studio, switches to green smoothies, dyes her hair, buys an entirely new wardrobe. On the surface, you tell yourself, she's finally taking care of herself. But the speed and intensity of the change tell a different story. Here's the gossip detail. A husband once told me his wife, who had avoided exercise for years, suddenly bought designer gym clothes, signed up for a 5 a.m. spin class, and started posting inspirational quotes online. He was proud at first, but later he discovered the morning spin was actually private breakfasts with a new coworker. The lifestyle reboot wasn't about health. It was about hiding guilt behind a new identity. Psychologically, this is shame avoidance. She can't stand the version of herself who crossed the line, so she tries to become someone new. A better, cleaner, more worthy woman. If she transforms enough, maybe she can erase the betrayal. The frantic pace is the giveaway. Genuine growth happens slowly, but guilt-fueled reinvention happens overnight and rarely lasts. Pay attention to the language. Suddenly she's finding herself, discovering who she really is, or working on her authentic self. It sounds empowering, but often it's code for "I don't like who I've become." And here's the danger. These changes buy her time. While you admire her growth, she hides her real motives in plain sight. But when the mask of reinvention starts to slip, guilt leaks out in another form. Emotional breakdowns she can't control, no matter how hard she tries. Method 9. The alibi friend. One of the oldest covers in the book isn't technology or work, it's people. When a woman needs an excuse, she often invents or exaggerates a friend who becomes her shield. This is the alibi friend. Suddenly there's a new bestie from the office, the gym, or a hobby group. You've never met her, she never comes over, and somehow she's always the reason your wife can't be home. Here's the gossip detail. A husband told me his wife became inseparable from Emily, a co-worker he'd never seen. Girls' nights, weekend brunches, late-night calls, Emily was everywhere. Until one day, by chance, he met Emily at a company party. And guess what? Emily barely knew his wife outside of work emails. The friend was a name borrowed to cover long evenings elsewhere. Psychologically, this works because friendship is socially unquestionable. Challenge it and you risk sounding controlling. What, I can't see my friends now? That defensive shield shuts most men down instantly. It's the perfect setup. The alibi sounds wholesome. The story checks out. And you're left feeling guilty for even doubting her. The signs are in the details. When you ask to meet this new friend, there's always a reason it can't happen. When you suggest inviting her over, there's sudden awkwardness. And when you casually bring up specifics, your wife's answers feel vague, rehearsed, or conveniently timed. Real friendships don't need stage management, fake ones do. Here's the truth. A friend who exists everywhere in her stories, but nowhere in your life, is rarely just a friend. She's an alibi, a mask to keep you from seeing where she really goes. And if you think invisible friends are a problem, wait until you discover the most chilling disguise of all, when she starts erasing you from her future plans. Method 10. The future disconnect. This is the most devastating method of all. The future disconnect. It's not about covering yesterday's lies. It's about quietly erasing you from tomorrow. Watch her language. Where she once said we, she now says I. You used to plan trips, talk about anniversaries, even debate new furniture. Now those conversations vanish. Ask about the future, and she shrugs or changes the subject. I might travel someday. Notice, I, not we. Here's a gossip-style case. A husband told me his wife loved house hunting with him. They spent weekends dreaming of their first home. Then suddenly she stopped. Instead, she mentioned maybe moving into a loft downtown, alone. Later, he discovered she was picturing that life with someone else. The absence of we had been the loudest confession. Psychologically, this happens because emotional investment follows attention. If her energy belongs elsewhere, she can't build a shared future with you. That's why she avoids holidays, family plans, or even conversations about your career. It's not distraction, it's detachment. And here's the brutal truth. When the future disconnect appears, she's not just hiding betrayal. She's preparing her exit. The truth doesn't scream. It slips through cracks, whispers in excuses, and vanishes in the details you can't afford to ignore. See you in the next video.